I'm your host, Rishi Agarwal, founder and CEO at Avantis Regtech. On behalf of Avantis, I take this opportunity and welcome all of you to this session of our webinar. I hope you and your loved ones have been doing well. I am based here in Pune, which still continues to be a red zone, and I'm working from home, as some of you can probably see in the video. So today's topic of our discussion is how to choose the right compliance management software for your organization. This is a topic which is very close to my heart. Years ago, when I decided to go ahead and digitize compliance management in India, I used to ask myself this question: what should we do so that we can genuinely solve the problem of complexity of compliance management for an Indian organization? It's important to know what to ask, how to select the right compliance management software. It is far from trivial. So today we are going to talk about all of these things. At the end of this webinar, I expect to give you some tools, empower you with some questions, so that when you go out and select a compliance management software, you can seek the right information. So with that said, we all know that COVID-19 has amplified the need for digitization. We have seen that ad hoc, manual, paper-based, and people-dependent compliance programs don't work anymore. At Avantis, our observation is companies who have invested time, energy, effort, and money in digitizing their compliance management have been far more resilient and adaptable as compared to other organizations who are still on ad hoc and manual processes. However, with that said, one of the important questions that we all have in front of us is how do we go about choosing the right compliance management software? It is definitely non-trivial. So let's go through the presentation today, talk about all these aspects, and hopefully we'll answer some of these questions. So before I move forward, I would like to share an important quote with you. A number of executive conversations which I have several times a month, this question often comes up. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse for non-compliance. A number of executives, they often come back and say, India's laws are so complex, I'm not sure, I'm not fully familiar. But guess what? This lack of familiarity does not become an alibi in the court of law. We are all responsible for complying timely, accurately, and so on. So this is an important quote. I would also want to share another quote with you. If you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. Both of these quotes hopefully put the topic of today in context, that complying in time, complying accurately cannot be overemphasized. We all have to do that as a part of doing business. The question is, do we have the right processes? Do we have the right systems? Do we have the right skills, experience, and people in order to get that going? And in order to get through this journey, the journey of digitization, how should we go about it? So I'm sure a number of you on the call today will agree with me that managing compliances in India is complex. Let's see what are the various parameters of this problem. Let's first lay some groundwork here. What are the types of compliances? As you can see, I have depicted some examples that we are all familiar with. Licenses, registrations, permissions, consent orders, returns, registers, challans, payments, remittances, renewals. I'm sure a number of you practitioners on the call today are very familiar with some of these terms. These are some of the various examples of compliances that we all have to comply on a monthly basis. Why compliance is complex? Let's examine it. There are three levels of compliance: central, state, and local. As we know, in India, certain things are on the union list, certain on the concurrent list, and certain other on the state list. And as a company operating in India, you may have a headquarter, you may have plants, you may have warehouses, you may have regional, local, zonal offices. They may be present in different parts of the country, and hence, from an applicability point of view, as a company, you will have some central, some state, and some local level compliances. So that's three different levels. There are 7 different categories of compliances. Labor, we are all familiar with labor laws. Finance and taxation deals with indirect taxes, direct taxes, customs, and so on. Commercial deals with various equipment related compliances, lifts, boilers, electricity, legal metrology, weights and measurement. These are all examples of commercial compliances. Secretarial deals with all your MCA and SEBI compliances. EHS stands for Environment, Health and Safety, deals with Central Pollution Control Board, State Pollution Control Boards, various Environment Protection Act of 1986 and solid waste management, hazardous waste management. Those are all examples of compliances under EHS. Then we have industry specific compliances. They depend on the industry that you're operating in, whether you're an insurer with IRDAI or a telecom provider with TRI or a NBFC or a bank with RBI. So those are compliances which are applicable because you operate in a specific industry and that industry has a regulator and there is an environment and you have to comply with all of those. That's typically in industry specific. So we are dealing with 3 levels, central, state and local. We are dealing with 7 different categories of compliances, and we are dealing with 3 types of compliances. So time-based, which have a frequency. They have periodicity like monthly, quarterly, half-yearly, annually, and so on. Event-based, again, there are 2 types. We'll talk about this further in the discussion today, but secretarial and non-secretarial events, they get triggered when the event gets activated and so on. And ongoing compliances, which include multiple kinds of compliances like displays and maintenance of various kinds of registers. They all fall under the ongoing compliances. There's no start date, there's no end date. You need to continue those compliances throughout the life of the existence of the organization. So as you can see, it's bigger than a breadbasket, 3 levels, 7 categories, and 3 types. Moving on, let's examine the key challenges of compliance in India. We're all very familiar with the Companies Act of 2013. 1st April 2014 was an important day in the history of independent India. The provisions for criminal proceedings and jail term were introduced for serious non-compliances. There are more for listed companies and private limited companies, and it's important to know that today compliance is not an option. It's non-trivial. People can go to jail. The key management personnel or KMPs can go to jail. There are over 8,000 provisions in the law today, besides the Companies Act, where there are provisions for criminal proceedings and jail term. The second is compliance in India is complex with too many acts, too many compliances, too many filings, too many dates, too many changes. Keeping track of all of these things and staying on top of them is definitely not easy, and that leads to complexity. The next item, and I'm going to talk about this in detail in one of the subsequent slides, is regulatory environment in India is fluid, and there are too many changes in a year. Followed by most organizations in India, over 90% of the companies still continue to operate on ad hoc, manual, paper-based, and people-dependent compliance programs, and they don't work anymore. The cost of non-compliance has increased. The regulatory scrutiny has gone through the roof. The number of notices that companies are receiving has gone up, and these risks are not affordable anymore. Boards are demanding higher levels of corporate governance, and managing directors and CXOs have been made accountable for compliance. Moving on, this slide depicts a high-level compliance burden for a company in India. We have modeled 3 companies, 3 manufacturing companies, one with a single plant, one with a 6th plant with a multi-state location, and one which is a sizable one with 11 plants across the country with 11 different states. And as you can see, the compliance burden increases dramatically. For a small company, you're dealing with 23 licenses, 60 plus applicable acts, around 750 applicable compliances with close to 120 filings a year. And as you increase the size from small to large, you can see the number of licenses and registrations exorbitantly go up to 163, followed by applicable acts moving from 60 to 210, applicable compliances increasing from 750 to close to 10,000, so 9,500 give or take, and filings per year go from 120 in a year to about 940 a year. Now, if you do the math, for 231 business days in a year, you're dealing with about 4+ filings on a daily basis. And it just makes for too much compliance burden. So tracking, knowing when what is due, who's accountable, who's responsible, whether something got done or not, definitely is far from easy. Let's look at the fluid regulatory environment. So today in Avantis's compliance database, we deal with over 1,100 acts, 58,000 compliances with 3,000 filings. Guess what? These change about 3,000 times a year. So if I were to break down numbers for you further, in 2019, there were 3,063 compliance updates. In the last 90 days, we have already seen 962 regulatory updates. Just in the last 30 days, there are 436 regulatory updates. And guess what? On the COVID-19, we are already seeing 443 updates since March 25th of 2020. So you can see that laws of the land are changing. They're changing fast. There are quite a number of changes that are happening in a given month. And a lot of these changes may be applicable to you. These changes are like change in duty structure, change in penalty, change in interest calculation, change in the form that you are using for compliance, increase in a compliance, reduction in a compliance, a change of date for a given compliance, temporary extensions. These are all examples of changes which impact your regulatory obligations. And it's important that the practitioners who are responsible for complying know about these and factor them in to their day-to-day functioning. So that's the fluidity of our regulatory environment. One of the other critical challenges that companies deal with is lack of in-house expertise, especially for multi-business, multi-entity, multi-locational organization, or some permutation and combination of it. You can imagine organizations lack the in-house expertise. Compliance typically takes a back seat. There's maybe one compliance officer who's dedicated on the job, and it's a matrix kind of an organization structure. Nobody reports into you, but you are accountable for one of the most critical functions in the company, because if you don't do your job well, company will pay through its nose. It may end up losing licenses, registrations, consent orders. It may end up paying hefty penalties. The key management personnel can go to jail. Those are all the ramifications of poor compliance in an organization. So that's one huge problem, that lack of dedicated resources. The second is it requires expertise. Every state has its own nuances. Just in the state of Karnataka, you're dealing with over 900 minimum wages today. There are flavors of the acts, their applicabilities, the thresholds. All of these things are different for different states. And one or two or three people in an organization may not have the knowledge, skills, or experience to manage some of these compliances or stay on top of hundreds of legal and regulatory updates that they are encountering on a day-to-day basis. So one of the huge challenges that corporations have is lack of in-house expertise. As I said, another major challenge is manual tracking and management. I think you already heard it from me earlier, so I'm not going to spend any time on this slide. But ad hoc, paper-based, people-dependent, manual tracking with spreadsheet, telephones, based or email-based tracking is not going to work anymore. You're dealing with licenses and renewals which come up on different dates. Half the time you will not even know something's coming up for renewal. There are so many different people in the organization responsible for their own compliances. While the compliance officer is accountable to the management and board, nobody else is accountable to them. They don't have a tracking mechanism which can hold other people accountable. So manual tracking is a huge problem. Now, let's first talk about how can technology help you to solve this problem. So how does technology help? Technology brings in the right processes and systems. It brings in transparency, accountability, timeliness, and traceability. So now that we have switched gears and we are now talking about how to choose the right management, right compliance management or digital software, the first thing to know here is what are the things that technology should do? First, it should bring in transparency. What do we mean by transparency? It basically means knowing what is applicable to our company, who's responsible for doing those compliances, what is the review mechanism, when is something due, has it been completed so far, and if it has not been completed, where is it stuck, who's sitting on top of it, what intervention may be required. All of these questions basically bring in the visibility and transparency for a compliance officer. So a software is supposed to bring in the required transparency where some of these questions can be answered without you picking up the phone or sending yet another tracking email. So that's one. Second, software is supposed to bring in accountability. What do we mean by accountability? Having one throat to choke, where knowing who is the person responsible for doing a compliance and who is their supervisor or reviewer who will make sure that the work that was done correctly, and if there was any inaccuracy, making sure it is resolved in time. So that's the accountability piece of it, where people can't hide behind the fact that I forgot, I was on vacation, or any of those, because the technology will keep them honest. The third is timeliness. Any compliance program is not effective without timeliness. And it's important that the timeliness is a key ingredient. Knowing location-wise, risk-wise, user-wise, aging reports with automation and reminders, alerts, notifications, and escalations coming to your web platform, your emails, your mobile platform, your SMSs, so that you don't end up missing critical compliances. So timeliness is a big piece of it. Traceability, which basically means when things do fall through the cracks, when you end up missing critical compliances, being able to do a root cause analysis, go back and find out what was missed, whether it was a human error, whether it was a system failure, or anything like that, so that you can take corrective action and fix this problem for the future. So these are the four important building blocks of a good software program or a good digital platform for a compliance management. So it should bring in the required transparency, accountability, timeliness, and traceability. And I often like to say that it should all be available without you having to lift the receiver of your phone and calling anyone up for any document or any status update. That's the utopia of a good compliance program. Moving on, what are the features that you should look for? And we'll spend a couple of minutes on each feature as we go further into this presentation. But what are the key features that you should look for? First, it should have smart dashboards. These dashboards from a single window should be able to track all the parameters. Now in Avacom, we typically track over 72 parameters on our dashboard. So if you just come to our dashboard, you will be able to see multiple views of data with slicing and dicing capabilities right from the dashboard. Otherwise, software can have a scenario where you are trying to find a needle in a haystack. Throwing data at people is very easy. Trying to massage that data, process that data, identify the key takeaways so that interventions are effective and timely is very, very important. And that's where smart dashboards play a vital role. Next, native mobile apps. You need to make sure that the software that you're choosing has native iOS and Android apps. In this day and age, if you have to get something adopted by your people at the grassroots level, it's important that the software is available on the app so that people don't have to go and remember IDs and passwords every now and then, log into the web app, get to the dashboard, click through buttons in order to know what is pending and so on and so forth. They should be able to get alerts on their mobile app when they need it to take corrective action. So you need to make sure that your software that you're choosing has the native mobile apps. The third, often people confuse digitization with a software. However, the software needs to have integrated compliance database and real-time compliance update notifications. A compliance management software is not a piece of code. A compliance management software is the piece of code with the greatest and the best features, functionalities, search, sort, integrated document management, and so on, along with an integrated compliance database. Because if it doesn't have the integrated compliance database, it is of very little use. I often use the analogy of having a human or 6 feet body as a compliance software, but a healthy heart as the compliance database. If the heart is not healthy, the body will be as good as dead. So you need to make sure that the vendor that you are choosing has repeatable, trustworthy, reliable, and high quality compliance database which is kept current. Why current? Because the law of the land changes 3,000 times a year. So even if I have a software with the right compliance database today, chances are in some time that will become useless because the law would have changed, the frequencies would have changed, the sample forms would have changed, the rate calculations, the interest, the penalties would have changed, and this compliance database would have become dated, of little no use. So that's the next important thing, that the compliance management software needs to come integrated with database as well as real-time compliance update notifications, which need to be personalized. Because if people are going to throw you 3,000 updates a year, it will be again like finding a needle in the haystack. You need to know exactly what you're accountable for. Your people need to know what they're accountable for. So the information that comes to you is really actionable and meaningful and relevant for your job at hand. The next item there is integrated document management system. Believe it or not, any compliance that you will do will end up creating one or more documents. What are these documents? So they will either be applications that you'll file for licenses, or you'll be having acknowledgements or receipts. you will have renewals, you will have registers, returns, challans, you will have variety of documents including working files that will come out of a compliance. You want to make sure that the software that you choose has a variety of features we'll talk about further in this discussion, but without those features, the software will be of little or no use. Let's move forward. The first question that you should ask is, does your compliance software cover all the various types of compliance types? Now, we mentioned that there are 3 types of compliances, which are time-based, event-based, and ongoing. Time-based compliances, as the name suggests, they have frequency, the frequency of one time, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, half-yearly, annual. These are all typical frequencies that are there for time-based compliances. You want to make sure that your software supports it. In addition, you should make sure your software supports not just statutory compliances, but internal compliance as well. Now let's spend 30 seconds on it. What is statutory compliance? Statutory compliance is something that is required by the law of the land. Government needs it, whether it's central, state, or local level. It is mandated or stipulated by the government of India. What are internal compliances? There are a number of compliances that are not stipulated by the government of India, but as an organization, you need to do them. For example, you may have multiple insurance policies. You may have lease and license agreements which come up for renewal or termination, or which require review at some point in time. You may have plant which requires some kind of a maintenance. You may have machines which may have a maintenance schedule. You may have company-owned vehicles which may require PUC and several other things. These are all examples of compliances that the government of India doesn't need, but it's an important and essential ingredient of your overall functioning. And that's where we at Avantis have extended the whole regulatory compliance management framework for you to define your own internal compliances, define them once, assign them to people, choose their frequency and type, and make sure you have your own title and description so that you can track them alongside statutory compliances in the same software, and you don't need to keep spreadsheets for managing your internal compliance. So that's one of the important questions you need to ask, whether the software supports statutory and internal compliances as a compliance type. The second area that you need to focus on is make sure it supports event-based compliances. Unlike time-based compliances which have a frequency, event-based compliances get triggered when you activate an event. Now, there are 2 kinds of events. We'll quickly walk you through them. There are secretarial events, which are MCA and SEBI related events, and there are non-secretarial events, which are others, and I'll give you an example. So let's first talk about secretarial events. So secretarial events are like having your board meeting. So when you have a board meeting, there are a number of things that you have to do ahead of the board meeting, in sending agendas and minutes of the previous meeting to all the board members, certain number of days ahead of time. During the day, on the day of the board meeting, during the meeting, you have to do a number of things like take attendance, manage quorum, and so on and so forth, present various agendas, get them passed. And after the day of the board meeting, you have a number of things like create the resolutions, upload them on the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, or as the case might be. And there are various stipulated guidelines for doing them. And it's important to make sure that you do them on time, otherwise you'll be out of compliance. So those are all examples of secretarial events. As soon as you say my next board meeting is on 30th of June, automatically a whole bunch of compliances get triggered by the system, get assigned to the right configured people in the system, and then the life cycle needs to get tracked so that you get to know from a dashboard what was due, who's responsible, what got done, where is it stuck, and what didn't get done, so you can make right intervention. The second type here, and again, by the way, there are over 70 secretarial agendas that are already pre-configured in Avacom, and you should make sure that you pay attention to that when you're talking to a vendor. The second area is non-secretarial events. So what are the examples? There's a fire in the factory. So it's an event. The fire has happened. So depending on where the fire has happened, what kind of fire was it? Was it an electrical fire? Was it a chemical fire, a petroleum fire? Was there a fatality involved or serious injury involved? The statutory requirements of reporting and the timelines of those reporting and the authorities involved changes dramatically. So if you're dealing with an electrical fire, you have to bring in the electrical inspector. If you're dealing with a chemical fire, you will have to deal with a different process and so on and so forth. So making sure as and when such an event has happened, triggering that event, making sure the right checklist is presented to the right people at at the plant level and taking them to do those actions in the stipulated period of time, tracking all of these to closure is what I'm talking about from a non-secretarial event perspective. What are the other examples? Have you ever tried changing your office address from even the same building to a different floor? Try that and you will know the complexity. So depending on where you are moving to where you are going, a number of compliances will get triggered. You may have to surrender your shop's establishment license in one location, get it in another location. You may have to file a modification to that. You may have to change your address in indirect tax, direct tax, GST, PF, ESI, PT, and all those registrations wherever you have your statutory or registered office address will need to go through those changes. You need to make sure those changes have been applied for and you have followed the process to get them ratified and registered. So all of these items are examples of non-secretarial events, and as and when these events occur, the system should have the capability for simply activating the event, and all the related compliances should get triggered automatically so that you can track their life cycle to closure. The next item here is you need to look at ongoing compliances. So while time-based and event-based compliances are critical, a large number of compliances fall under the category of ongoing compliance. What is an ongoing compliance? So if you're in the state of Maharashtra, you're very familiar with Yethe Bal Kamgar Kam Karit Nahit, means we don't employ child labor. It's a display that is supposed to be at your reception. If you are in the state of Maharashtra, you also know that you have to put the name of your establishment in the local language, which is Marathi, and I'm sure other states have similar requirements. So if you're in Tamil Nadu, there is a requirement for having the name there in Tamil and so on. In addition, you have to display a number of abstracts of key acts in various prominent places within your organization. You have to maintain various kinds of registers like muster rolls, salary registers, fines and deductions registers, lime wash register, and so on and so forth. All of these registers need to be available to an inspector as and when they show up. There is no time and date for it. At any point in time, as and when the inspector requires it, you need to be able to present these registers. These are all the examples of ongoing compliances. There are thousands of such ongoing compliances. A few hundred may easily be applicable to you. You need to have a technology-based process to know what these compliances are and make sure they are assigned to someone. There's a frequency assigned to them for doing and for reviewing so that all the paperwork can be kept in the system. So in Avantis, in Avacom, our flagship product, we have a capability for you to take the photograph of your reception where Yethe Bal Kamgar Kam Karit Nahit is visible and upload with a time and date stamp into the system, so that there is not only an assurance that compliance is getting done, there is also an evidence that it got done on a specific date with a time and date stamp. So you know, sitting on your desk in front of your dashboard, that this compliance was due, it has been done, somebody has reviewed it, and you can rest assured or get a peaceful sleep at night. So those are the typical compliances. You should ask these questions, that whether the vendor supports them all. The next area is automation is to have an automatically generated compliance calendar. So when you go to a specific month, you will see that a number of compliances are applicable. So you will see various monthly compliances in that month. There may be some quarterly compliances that have a due date in that month. There may be half-yearly compliances and annual compliances which may have a due date in that month. All of these are examples of various dates on which compliances are applicable. So you need to make sure that the vendor is capable of generating an automatic compliance calendar based on all the applicable compliances. So if you see the screenshot here, this is an example of Avacom, a screenshot from there, where in a typical month you're seeing, on what day, how many compliances are applicable and the color code for that. So if you see, there are 4 colors in the screenshot, you are seeing 2. The blue color represents any compliance in the future. So if I take 30th as an example, on the 30th, there are 26 compliances. And when the screenshot was taken, 30th was in the future. And that's why that is blue. All others here are in red, means 1 or more compliances due on that day are still pending. And you can see all the compliances at an organizational level, which includes all your entities, sub-entities, departments, locations, functions. All of these are put together at a management level, and this is what you're seeing. So current and previous month's calendar, your compliance obligation by dates, color-coded statuses by day and date, organized into statutory, internal and ongoing compliances, and integrated with mail clients so that you don't have to come to the system. It is visible to you in your Outlook, in your Google for Business, and also available on the mobile app. So these are questions you need to ask as to whether your software vendor has automatically generated compliance calendars which can do all of these things. Otherwise, using these calendars may be a pain and not so easy. Let's move to the next one. We spoke about over 3,000 regulatory changes a year, and you need to make sure that your software vendor can assure you that national, comprehensive, real-time, and personalized legal updates are available to all of you within 24 hours. So I invite you to go and visit our website at avantis.co.in. I assume that you are able to see my screen right now. This is Avantis's website, India's only online portal which provides you national, comprehensive and real-time regulatory updates, typically within 24 hours. So you will see that if you look at the table here, in this week alone, there have been 102 updates. When you click on these updates, it takes you to the detailed regulatory updates page where all these updates are classified by central and states, by various kinds of industries, by various regulators, by date ranges, and if you are particular about seeing specific types, whether compliance notification, informational notification, or category-wise notification, you can see them all. So if suppose you wanted to only see the COVID-related updates, we have made a section available right here for you. You can click on it, and as you can see, from 25th of March, there have been 443 COVID-related legal updates which are available. And if you wanted to see how many are labor, simply click labor on the left side, and you will see there are 102 updates from labor and so on. And each one of these updates, you can click and go into the lower level detail. You will see what is the category, which state are you talking about, what was the synopsis of this update, and if there is a regulatory document associated, you will also be able to get a copy of the regulatory document then and there. And you don't need to come to our website to do that. You can download one of our apps, which I'll talk about later in the presentation, or you can simply go ahead and register for this. It takes about 2 minutes for you to register and personalize the updates, and they will start coming to you in your email every morning when you wake up. So that is something which is already available, but you should ask your vendor if they are able to provide all of these at a national, which is central, state, and local levels. And all these updates are classified by departments, by ministry, by industry, by category, by frequency, by regulator, and so on and so forth, so that they're easy to consume, they are personalized, and they have the enclosed regulatory document, which is a notification or a circular, so that you don't have to look for 2,243 websites. That is what we scan today in order to get all of these updates to you in a timely manner. So guess what? This newsletter can help you personalize it so that you don't have to browse through these thousands of websites to get the information that you need. Moving on, the next question you should ask your vendor is, does it have a flexible workflow engine? A lot of softwares, they expect you to modify your processes to fulfill the obligations of the software. Whereas one should ask this question whether we are buying the software for our convenience or the software is buying us. Definitely we are buying the software. So software needs to have sufficient flexibility so that you can configure your own processes, your own workflows, your own performer reviewer structures, your own entity location department structures, and so on and so forth. And if that flexibility is not there, then you have a problem in adopting it, using it going forward. So it needs to have role-based systems with multiple levels of functions. So you need to be able to configure a plant head, a factory head, location heads, regional office heads, roll up various branches or locations under them, give them either complete roles, partial roles, departmental roles, functional roles. All these flexibilities need to be there so that the software comes clean and it is able to adapt to your work environment rather than you trying to adapt your business to the software requirements. So that's one. Then you need to ask whether the software supports standard and custom workflow options. There is a capability for self-managing it. Otherwise, every time you have a promotion, new employees come in, existing employees leave, the roles change, responsibilities change. Some, for example, some of your female associates may go for a long-term maternity leave. You may have to reassign certain compliances and so on. So software needs to give you this empowerment and flexibility so that you can manage your own administration. It also needs to have a task module so that one or more tasks can be assigned, and you should be able to create those tasks, assign them to the right people, and manage their life cycle. The next thing that we should ask is whether the software has an integrated document management system. As I said earlier, a compliance program will create a number of document types. So let's see what are the key features you should look for. Version management is an important one, so that any number of versions for any kind of document can be created, either a compliance document, which could be a license, registration, permission, consent order, return, register, challan, payment, acknowledgement, receipt, and so on, or it can be a working file which you may have used in order to fulfill your compliance obligation or do the calculation. So you need to be able to manage multiple versions of your documents. It needs to have an integrated universal document viewer so that you are not worried about whether an Excel or a PowerPoint or another kind of document application is installed at all your users, because guess what? These are expensive softwares. They need a lot of money to be invested. So a document viewer helps you to be able to manage all of these documents for every associate without having to buy their licenses. We support 48 different kinds of document types. So when I say document type, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, PDF, JPEG, GIF, TIFF, I mean, these are all examples of various kinds of document, and like this we support 48 different document types. It needs to have a mandatory review capability, otherwise humans, they will simply say select all, approve all, and suddenly a lot of mistakes will simply pass through. So you need to make sure that there is a mandatory review where a reviewer cannot approve a document unless they have clicked open it and looked at it, and that control needs to be there built in. There needs to be a capability for bulk upload and download to make the process efficient and easy to use. Otherwise, if you have to upload 5 different documents, it may take you many minutes to do that. So this capability needs to be there. It needs to have a lot of security. One of the biggest risks of digitization is security, and unless your vendor has all the best practices around, global best practices around security, this can become a huge risk. And that's where, like a typical bank security, Avantis has invested heavily for firewalls, application firewalls, various kinds of backup, various kinds of encryption standards for data at rest and data in motion, and our document security is AES 256-bit encryption, so that you don't have to worry about security of any document that goes into the system. The last item on this you should focus on is tamper proofing. Make sure that these documents, once uploaded, are tamper proof. Nobody can delete them, nobody can modify them, so that you can always use this repository in accordance with the IT Act and use this as a digital repository just in case government inspection needs to be supported by it. So these are the key features that you should look for in your document management. Ask the vendor whether they have it or not. Moving on, as I said, one of the smartest capability of a digital software is its ability to analyze, report the right information to the right people at the right time, so that you're not looking for a needle in the haystack. You can actually get to the specific piece of information, initiate intervention, and make sure that you can take the corrective action. So a lot of these features, including standard reports, graphical with aging reports with risk associated with them, by location, by user, by department, by type, by category, by risk level. All of these are slices of data that your software vendor needs to be able to do. You should look at reporting capabilities. You should also look at ad hoc reporting, or on-demand reporting as we like to call it, because oftentimes what may be there as a part of a standard report may not be fully useful for you. You may need to get a slice of data which is non-standard, and you need to have a smart interface to be able to pick and choose your filters, your values to those filters, and download this data into Excel and play around with that, so that you can get the right information for your use. And that's the on-demand reporting. So make sure all of these things are there. You can download these reports into various kinds of formats. You can schedule these reports. They can get delivered to your mailbox in an encrypted manner without compromising security. And it has a lot of slicing and dicing with various kinds of views available in its analytics platform. You should look for that. And we had spoken about the importance of mobile app. As you may have seen, mobile has penetrated our lives like never before. Something that's available on the mobile is often used much more than something that's available on the desktop. Believe it or not, Instagrams and the Facebooks, Instagram is a mobile preferred app. companies like Facebook report that almost 90% or more than that traffic comes from a mobile platform. Mobile is changing the way companies use softwares, and they adopt and embrace these softwares. If something's not available on the mobile, chances are the adoption will be poor. Your users will not use it, and if they don't use it, all your dashboards will look red. And in spite of you putting all the energy, effort, money, and investments into digitizing, it may still not help you get to the utopia where you had planned for. So it's important that your vendor has native iOS and Android apps which are highly secure with PIN and biometric options, which are optimized for 3G and 4G networks, which deliver all the real-time alerts on compliance updates, changes in a personalized manner, along with access to all the data and reports in a secure and encrypted manner. So these are important items that you should look for. I'm giving you some screenshots here which should help you see what are these various kinds of features, how these dashboards on mobile phone look like, how it is so easy to go into the mobile app and in seconds identify all the regulatory updates which are relevant to your role, all the compliances that are applicable to your organization, click through of overdue versus close timely and close delayed, along with click on the documents and apply various kinds of filters, see all the acts that are applicable to you, understand which compliances need greater scrutiny and attention. All of these features are available on the mobile phone in a safe and secure manner. So you need to make sure that you ask this question, see the mobile app, identify the use cases, and make sure it works well on iOS and Android platform. One of the other mobile apps that we have made available free of cost to solve your regulatory updates problem is called Rulesbook. At this point, I invite you all to go to App Store and Play Store and look for Rulesbook. The spelling of Rulesbook is RULEZBOOK. It's very easy to use app. You can literally download it in a few seconds. It takes less than 2 minutes to personalize the app. Identify your states, central, identify your role, whether you are from the HR department, finance, EHS, commercial, company secretary, or what have you. Select those roles and start receiving these notifications into your mobile app several times a day based on your configuration. We track over 2,243 websites, folks, today across central, state, and local bodies. There are 556 municipal corporations that we track on a daily basis. We have a strong team of 50 lawyers who work with this data and make sure that the right update gets to the right person based on their role into their mobile app via an alert in a timely manner within 24 hours of the release of the update. So I invite you to go to App Store, Play Store, look for the app, spend a few minutes, and you can thank me later for this wonderful app that we have put together. Thousands of users across the country have simplified the way they look at regulatory updates. It has helped them solve the problem of getting to the right update in a timely manner with the synopsis and the copy of the circular. Say no to all those WhatsApp-based forwarded circulars and notifications that you receive, because now in a reliable manner, in a personalized manner, on a real-time basis, across 28 states, central and 9 union territories, and so many local bodies, all of these updates can get delivered to you on your mobile app. So that's what you need to spend a few minutes on. Try and see if you can sign up, and you will certainly start seeing how digitization helps you get through this. So it's about 3:45. We are 45 minutes into this discussion already. I would want to take a pause at this point and open up for Q&A. If you can send your questions now, I can start answering them. We have reserved about 15 minutes for Q&A. So I'm waiting for your Q&A now. Please go ahead. So someone has just asked me a question whether we only provide tracking services or we even help with the compliances. Sunil, thank you so much for asking that question. So certainly tracking and management is one of the key services that we provide across the law of the land. So any act, any section, any paragraph, any kind of time-based, event-based, checklisted compliance across 6 different categories, 3 different types is what you can track. However, for labor, we also provide services. So we are a part of TeamLease. As you know, TeamLease is India's leading provider of labor compliances, and you can seek those services as well, which includes creation of returns, registers, and challans, and filing them along with all the other services, including vendor audits, consulting, and so on and so forth. So all of those services are also available. If you want to only use a digital platform, in addition to Avacom, we also have Avacom Labor. Avacom Labor helps you digitize your labor compliances. You can integrate it with your payroll software. You can upload a few spreadsheets and automatically generate all the returns, registers, and challans across 608 different registers and 287 different returns using our Avacom Labor product. So yes, beyond tracking, we also have services for labor, and we also have tracking, and we also have a processing product called Avacom Labor. Please look up our website for additional details. Give us a call if you're interested, and we'll be very happy to have a detailed chat with you. One of the other question is, please clarify whether the software can be used for internal SOP compliances. Absolutely. I mentioned this, that we not only help you track all your statutory compliances, we also help you track all your internal compliances. So we have created a whole framework. We extend that framework to you. We can help you configure all your internal compliances, and with your own description, your own details, all these SOPs can potentially be tracked as a part of the same product. Please reach out to us and we can schedule a detailed demo as well. How are the commercials charged? Viral, thank you for asking that question. We will need to understand the size and complexity of your organization, the business that you are in, how many manufacturing plants, if you are a manufacturer, or if you're a service, then how many different cities and states you're located in, and based on that we can work out a commercial for you. There is a one-time fee which we charge to bring you on board, where we do your business discovery, understand who you are, what kind of a structure you are, what are the applicable compliances. We go into the level of detail to understand whether you're a private limited or a listed company, and from there what is applicable. If you're a manufacturer, we go down to the detail of identifying if you have hoists, lifts, cranes, pressure vessels, boilers. Do you deal with hazardous chemicals? Do you use tools and tackles? All of these are a part of our assessment. Based on this input, we come out with a list of all the applicable compliances and then review the list with you. And that's first part of our onboarding exercise. So the commercials are based on one-time onboarding fee and a monthly license fee. And that's how the commercials are. Please reach out to us. We'll discuss in detail. We'll show you the demo, and then we can talk commercial. The next question that Arun has asked is the software only India-based? Arun, no. The software caters to the law of the land globally. But as far as integrated compliance database is concerned, it's an India-focused compliance database. India is reasonably complex when it comes to compliance. As I said, there are over 2,200 websites where government publishes all of these details. So Avantis has created deep expertise in India-focused compliance. So our database that has all the 1,100 plus acts, 58,000 compliances, and 3,100 filings is kept current for India. However, the software can take a list of compliances that you may have for your international location. We can create any entity for any country. We can take your list of compliances and map it in the software, so you can track your international compliances also as a part of our software, but we do not provide the expertise around interpreting those laws, keeping them current. So that responsibility will have to be taken, Arun, by your organization. I hope that answers your question. What are the approximate cost for this service? I would not want to discuss cost as a part of this webinar, because cost is a loaded term which depends on the complexity of your business. So I would certainly want to understand that. It will take about half an hour worth of discussion. Sunil, I invite you to set up some time with us as soon as you can, and I would love to engage with you, understand who you are, what you do, what's the size and complexity, and work out a commercial proposal in line with the nature of the organization that you're responsible for. I have a question from Mahendra. Mahendra, thank you for asking this question. Does the compliance software integrate with ERP? Yes, we are an open architecture software. We publish APIs. As long as your ERP provider has the APIs, we can obviously integrate with it. And we need to define the use cases as to what is the information exchange that you look for, what are the points of information exchange, what kind of information needs to be exchanged. So we will work with you, make sure the information exchange is identified clearly, the use cases are deliberated and discussed, and as a result of that, we can definitely integrate with your ERP software. The only precondition is your ERP software vendor should publish those APIs for integration. We have Prathamesh asked the next question. Can we create metadata in this application? Document management solution is there, and what's yes, document management solution is there. All the metadata around compliance, where it is compliance title, compliance detail and description, compliance risk level, compliance penalty, paragraph. All of these are metadata on compliance database that is already there in the system. And you mentioned about integrated document management as well. It comes along, so you don't need to have a separate document management system. In case you're already using an existing document management system, we can also help you use that and use the links from that system as a part of this, so that you don't end up duplicating the data. So multiple provisions are available based on your requirement. Is there any specific site for compliances? I do not understand this question fully. Someone has asked it, but we have the portal avantis.co.in. Please go ahead, take a look. That portal will provide you all the legal updates. If you become a customer, there is a login button there, and you will see the portal. But that portal is visible to you only when you become a customer, and we have configured you based on your applicable acts and compliances. Your user credentials will be created, and that's when you will be able to use the product and see the details. So another question that Debashish has asked is, do you have global compliance stuff from different countries? So Debashish, I think I tried answering this question earlier. Our product can take any compliance. So literally, I can upload and map any compliance from anywhere else in the world. Multiple customers use our product to track multiple compliances from different countries of the world. However, the integrated compliance management database that we take responsibility for is currently focused on India, because India is a fairly complex regulatory environment. So we keep track of 58,000 plus compliances around across 1100 plus acts in 28 states and 9 union territories. So that is our responsibility. We keep it current. You can use the software for other countries also, but unfortunately we do not provide the integrated compliance database for that. We can take your checklist, we can upload those checklists into the software, we can map those checklists in addition to your India checklist that we will be able to provide to you. So software is usable, but compliance database we will have to collaborate for international locations. Somebody has asked me, Akshi has asked me a question, is the software web-based? Yes, the software is web and mobile-based. You may have seen, Akshi, some of the screenshots that I had shared on the mobile also, but it is web and mobile-based. You're absolutely right. It is integrated with your emails. It is integrated with your SMSs. So there is a dual factor authentication. When you try logging in after your ID and password, the software will ask you for OTP, which gets sent within the fraction of a second to your registered email ID. So it is a web and mobile based interface. On the mobile, you can use biometric access, or you can have your own PIN just in case your phone is not biometrically enabled. But web and mobile with those kinds of accesses and entitlements is available on the software. Where does the data get stored? We offer two deployment models, Akshi. One deployment model is a cloud-based model in which you can simply use your laptop or desktop with an internet connection. Once we configure you, you can come to avantis.co.in, log in with your credentials and start seeing your dashboards. That's a simple way of doing it. The second is some of the larger organizations, they need an on-premises deployment. We also offer on-premises deployment, but in that case, it will be deployed in your data center. You will need to provision the virtual machines, hardware, and operating system and databases, and our team can deploy it in your environment as well. So both those deployment options are available. If you take the cloud-based option, the data is hosted on Microsoft Azure in the Central India and Southern India environment for primary and disaster recovery. And if you deploy it on your own premises, then it is going to be on your own data center. One of the questions here, Sunil, thank you for asking again, is can the software also monitor the performance of employees based on compliance? Absolutely, Sunil. Compliances are tagged to individual users. There are various kinds of summaries available by users with aging report based on risk. So you can actually see that user A had 18 compliances, out of which 5 compliances were high risk compliances. Out of 5, 3 compliances were completed on time, and 2 compliances, 1 compliance was completed delayed, and 1 is outstanding with an aging report of over 90 days. All of these lower level detail in various slices and dices with charts and graphs, both pie chart, bar charts, with all kinds of click-throughs are available. So you can certainly monitor the performance of employees. Of course, we are a compliance company. This is a compliance product. So we talk in context of digitizing compliances. So you can look at the performance in context of compliance. So Hamraj, you've asked the share details for the further demonstration and discussion on the commercial part. Let me share the last slide of my presentation that should give you all the details. So please feel free to take down the details. This is the slide. I hope you can see it. So you can write to us at sales@avantis.co.in or call us at 8893594595. I repeat, it is 8893594595, or write to us at sales@avantis.co.in. There is also a chat function available on our website. You can simply go there and chat with us as well. I'm just showing it to you on the screen. If you see, there is a phone number right here at the right hand corner of my screen. You can send us an email and contact us, or you can chat with us right here, and we will be able to talk to you immediately and help you there. So I hope that answers your question, Hamraj. So Sunil, you've asked us to contact you. Certainly, I will be happy to have someone call you up. Absolutely. You should expect to hear back from us later today. Hamraj has asked a question, is it a cloud-based? Can you use it on your own machines? We provide, Hamraj, both those options. I just spoke about them. It has a cloud flavor as well as an on-premises deployment option. It depends on your preference. We can support both those options. There's a question from Mahendra, can we customize statutory compliance alert according to our need? Absolutely, Mahendra. It's a digital software. All the alerts, notifications, escalations, and reminders are customizable. There is a standard schedule in the system. On top of the standard schedule, you can create your alerts based on your requirements and personalize the software to your requirements. And we actually help you do that at the time of onboarding you. So yes, the answer to your question is absolutely yes. So we are at 3:58 now, getting very close to the 4 p.m. I want to be very respectful of all of your time. I loved the questions that we had today. I'm open for one last question. Darshit has asked for a copy of the PPT. Darshit, sure, as a result of this, we will send you not just the copy of the PPT, but also a video recording of the webinar today. So you will receive both of them. Thank you for asking that. So it's 4 o'clock almost. Thank you so much for joining in. We had an overwhelming response today. We are seeing a lot of our customers starting to think about digitization in a big way. Digitization, folks, is a journey, not a destination. A good software with an integrated compliance database with real-time alerts, with easy-to-use functionality, certainly enables and expedites your digital journey. We are here to help you with that. It takes a couple of quarters after you've implemented the software for everyone to come fully on board, your dashboards to become fully green. It's a journey. So we are here to hold your hand along the way. We have done it for about 1,500 customers in India. We work with some of the largest groups in the country. We work with a lot of SMEs and medium-scale enterprises across 40 industries today. We help digitize over 110,000 documents a month. Our software sends out over 2 lakh alerts, reminders, and escalations per month. We have over 10,000 users use our software every day to track lakhs of compliances across all of these enterprises. So we've been doing this for a large number of customers, and we can help you as well. I look forward to having more engaging discussions with each one of you and let you start your digital journey. But do not forget to visit avantis.co.in or go to your iOS and App Store and Play Store and download Rulesbook. It's available totally free, and you will start seeing how we can help you start this digitization journey and simplify your experience managing your compliances. So with that, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our discussion today. Hopefully it was a productive one for you, and would love to get your feedback and happy to engage with you further and have some detailed conversations. Thank you.